Todd Sachs of Sachs Realty, and welcome to this episode of Inspired. And I'm here with business owner Colleen Rippey, and she's the owner of Baltimore Real Producer Magazine. Welcome, Colleen.
Thank you for having me, Todd. I'm really excited.
Yeah, well, we're glad that you could be here. Yeah. So tell us about Real Producers.
So it kind of goes back to, if you don't mind, I take it back a little bit to before Real Producers. I think it just brings context to what it is.
Okay.
My first real job, and some people wouldn't even call it a real job, was selling Cutco knives. You familiar with Cutco?
I am, yeah.
Good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, about
Guys
to go
sell
into
to a lot of
pitch now.
realtors.
Yeah, so their general model, their standard model is they recruit college students and they go out and they sell their mom and dad, and then they get referred to other parents and families, and then they just keep selling. It's sort of like a business to consumer model, right? So I did that for years and was one of the top reps in the company. But what I really realized, like halfway through my Cutco career, which was like 10 years long, coming up on, is halfway through I pivoted and started focusing on realtors. And it's not really intuitive why until we kind of bridge the gap that, you know, if we're going to be giving something like Cutco and we want it to be sort of a residual business and ongoing, it made more sense to work with realtors which is in a field that typically gives gifts consistently. So I sort of identified it was a problem where people were giving gifts like gift cards and wine and consumables, which I give that stuff. I receive that stuff. It's great. It's just from a business strategy perspective.
They don't remember you. They
Exactly.
drink the wine and that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Consumed, gone, forgotten, right? So that was my whole pitch generally. I would just go into office meetings, a room like this, 10 agents, 100 agents, whatever, and pitch why they should move their funds from this to that. So I did really well with that. But the point is, I kind of got a bird's eye view of the industry through being a vendor in the industry, and a unique one at that. So I kind of got away with getting into some unique events and doing some things. I never competed with any other vendor. So I kind of realized that, you know, from a vendor perspective, there was no other way to access the top producers on a consistent basis. There was no platform for that. All there was associations. Nothing against associations, nothing against the Women's Council or any other group of agents, brokerages, seminars, trainings. I went to it all and I did really well. It's just typically the agents I was consistently in front of were the agents that were not producing, because those are the ones that have the time to be showing up to all that stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah, and they weren't buying a lot of gifts because they only got a couple deals in the year and they'd buy a handful, but the average order was lower. So I knew if that was not just my problem, it had to be a consistent problem across the board, right? Like other vendors are probably wanting to be in front of, you know, mortgage, they want to be in front of the top producers too. There's more opportunity there. So it was more about like kind of filling a void that I perceived in the industry, which is there wasn't a community that had the attention of the top producers. It's like Gary Vee says, you can't market to anyone unless you have their attention. So how do we get their attention? And that's kind of what led to Real Producers, because this is kind of the hub of everything that has spawned from this between our events and social media and stuff. This is what everything's based on, which is ultimately what initially got the agent's attention, because this magazine is not just another realtor magazine or a trade magazine or even Inman. It's their stories.
Right.
It's telling their personal stories.
Did you learn about this in your quest to find a platform that would give you the top producers so that you could market Cutco?
Yeah,
too?
So this whole like drive that I was on was parallel to a good friend of mine named Remington, and he launched the first market that this was in. It wasn't even called Real Producers when it started out. It was so early on, the name changed.
Where was
but
that?
This was in Indianapolis.
Okay.
So we got connected because he sells Cutco out there, or sold. You know, he was the Cutco guy selling to realtors there. So he had this great idea, and he told me about it. And at first I kind of poo-pooed it, to be honest, because speaking of Gary Vee, I may bring him up 10 times because I love him. I know you all follow him. Yeah. But, you know, I follow a lot of what he says, and some things can be taken out of context, but he's all about, you know, digital marketing, and he's not purely digital. He's about following their attention.
Grabbing attention.
Exactly.
Right.
But the way I interpreted it when I first heard the word print come out of Remington's mouth, I was like, no. I was like, what is this, 1990? Like, come on, you know. So I kind of missed out on an opportunity to get it on it even earlier, but I watched him for 2 years, and he was the only market doing it for 2 years. And after that, you know, seeing the success, seeing what he was building out there, and seeing that it was so much more than just a magazine, that he was creating community, that he was bringing people together face to face, and that there were multiple prongs to the whole system, if you will.
Right.
I saw the value in that, and I was like, oh, this is like what I've been looking for. this is like the next level to really being able to, I guess, step into what I perceive to be my potential calling.
Sure.
So then I plugged in, and then shortly after, Real Producers was not a franchise yet. It was so early on.
So how long ago was this?
I launched, it's almost 2 years ago to date, was when Real Producers, the first issue came out. It was the March edition of 17 was our first issue.
So were you the first owner of Real Producers? I mean, was it named something different than...
So it was Top Producer, and then because there's like a CRM called Top Producer or something, and they had to change it. Yeah, it was called Top Producer would be a cool name too, but I like to play on words. We can do
like
this.
Real Producer.
Yeah, me too. It's unique. Yeah. I was in the first training group. I did drag my feet a little bit because I was still doing Cutco and I wanted to hit my goals. So it took me like 6 months to actually ramp up. So I can't say I was the second one to print. I was one of the first ones that was trained. Then I kind of like took a while to launch. But I was probably like the fourth or something in print across the country. And it was still sort of being tested at that point. But what's cool is now, fast forward to like this moment, I just got back from a summit with all the Real Producers publishers. And we're 80 strong and growing. We'll probably be at 100. Now they have so much like force behind it. They have all these recruiters. They're pulling people in left and right. Not just anybody, of course, like really great people who are capable. And they have a system behind it now. They have a model to follow. And they know that if they just plug in and follow the model, they'll be successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been an owner for 2 years.
Yeah.
So kind of take us, what do things look like today that are different from 2 years ago?
That's a great question. Definitely a transition of confidence and certainty. The same uncertainty that I had with this being a suitable platform to even put my brand, my name, my reputation behind, if you will, that existed in my mind when I talked to Remington, and it still permeated a little bit when I first started kind of testing the waters and meeting with
you were
people
number 4, so it literally was brand new.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
and,
you were
and to
pioneering.
people in this market, they had no context of any other market, really. And it was so brand new that, I was meeting with potential advertisers long before we went to print, because the way the model works, you have to sell a good chunk of advertising before you can even justify print, because you have to kind of pay for, at least cover the cost of the magazine itself.
Right.
Knowing also that once you come out with your first issue, it's every month. So you have to be ready.
That's a lot to do.
Yes. I mean, that's why I dragged my feet too, because I was like, man, when I finally pull the trigger, there's no going back. It's deadline.
Right.
And I work well with deadlines.
And you have to get other people to work well with them too, though. That's the problem.
Exactly.
They don't.
Exactly. So it was, what was encouraging though, like even though I had some hesitation, was the early meetings I had with some of our early adopters, our early partners, which have a special place in my heart just because they believed in it. They believed in me, and they told me that to my face. They didn't necessarily know that this was going to be anything. They didn't have any they're taking a big risk. That they were like, whatever, I believe in you. And that's pulls at my heartstrings a little bit.
With Cutco, are you still doing that, or you let that go altogether?
Great question. So I didn't let it go. I refused to let it go because I built it up for so long.
Right,
so
10 years.
Really, it was happenstance and luck that a good friend of mine, her name's Elizabeth. I'm sure she'll watch this later. Hey, Elizabeth. So she moved away. We grew up together. We went to high school together. Good friends for a long time. She moved to Florida for a period of time. We stayed in touch. And then it was kind of the perfect opportunity. Right as I was transitioning to Real Producers, she moved back home and was looking for a new opportunity. And we just kind of started talking, and I started training her to kind of replace myself in the Cutco business. So now I've just moved to more of a leadership role, coaching her. So we have weekly coaching calls and daily huddle calls, and just holding her accountable really, and just training her and plugging her into the community as much as I can, using Real Producers too, because I can connect her with all these agents. But the key for me wasn't any longer being the face of it, because it's confusing, and I also didn't want this platform to become disingenuous.
Conflict of interest or whatever, right?
Doing this is not a ploy to sell more knives. In fact, I would never want Elizabeth to leave, but if she did, nothing would change here. You know what I mean? If we didn't have Cutco on the back end, it's fine. And honestly, there's really not a direct ROI from this to that, because I don't pitch it or promote it really at all.
Could you stand on your own 2 feet with this business alone? Or,
Yes, absolutely,
So you've gotten
absolutely.
to that point now.
My kind of vision long term, and I'm still learning about growing businesses and all of that. But now that it's working out with Cutco, we're super lean. It's just I pay an assistant, have Elizabeth, and then I lead them. But I'd love to build this to a point where I can not completely step out, because I am a control freak, but I also would want to still be kind of at the puppet master, if you will, or just kind of helping lead those individuals, and then ultimately growing another business, whatever that may be. I'm always kind of looking for the next opportunity. I'm not bored by any means. Yeah. Just always wanting to look for the next thing and
Well, you can see the momentum. I mean, the social media postings, and I've seen the articles. I know that Rich Beck was at the Bygone, and just really cool stuff.
Yeah. We really put a lot of thought. Thanks to Jill, honestly. She's the creative mind behind the photo shoots, and she works directly with the subject, with the feature, to talk through creatively what they're looking to do. And it's really transformed. If you look at our early issues, it's a million times thicker. I mean, it started with 20 pages, now we're at 70. Wow. And more partnerships, right, equals more content, and we balance it. It's not just all ads. We make sure we backfill it with content and everything. But it's changed so much from the side of the photography too, and just the way the stories are put together. The first couple issues, we didn't really know what we were doing. We thought we were publishing a trade magazine. And so it looks very businessy, very professional. It's agents here I am in my office. Here I am pretending to write an offer. Here I am standing here. It was very not stiff on purpose, but a little bit. And since then, we've kind of transformed the vibe to be a lot more lifestyle, portrait photography, looking longingly into the distance,
and things like that.
And we make it personal, about their families,
that.
and because people want to know who they are, and people are becoming more and more vulnerable. We're really trying to coach them to that, and we're learning how to set the right expectation and really. And I'm helping, our writers pull that out of them too, just because you have to just create a space where they're comfortable to really go deep. And just understanding that even with our partner like Rich Beck, or somebody who wants to be positioned well among this group, showing who you really are and being vulnerable gets the best response. Our audience eats that up, and they will love you more. And it's just trying to get that through their mind, because it's also really hard for them to share some really personal things. Stu Epstein, I'm going to give him a quick shout out. He's one of our partners with George Mason. We just wrapped up a story with him. It's coming out in the April issue, and it's all about his recovery from addiction. And he's the first partner that I've seen that's really gone deep on something personal like that.
Things out.
It's not just a glorified article that looks like an ad that's kind of disguised as an article. It's
we talk about it all the time, even in our meetings. The real, connecting to the real and the real life and the real stories. It's everything. It's very, very important.
Exactly.
So was there a point when you started 2 years ago, you're self-employed, so were you concerned that this would, you built this Cutco business, so, you're doing it again. So, where were your challenges when you first started? Can you just kind of talk about that? What were some of the struggles that you had?
Yeah, probably my biggest struggle, and continues to be, and I alluded to it earlier, I'm a control freak, and I know a lot of top agents that have the same issue with letting go. And I'm still working through that. I have baby steps. I even got in a small argument with Jill this morning about me not even letting something go to her that she taught me how to do, running events. We have a big gala coming up, and I am just so anal about the details, and it's my greatest strength but my greatest weakness at the same time, because man, does it hold me back from being able to really flourish and clear my mind and focus on really what's most important in the big picture, because I'm in the weeds half the time, focusing on the color of the linens, stuff that really doesn't matter. And so that if I just had to pick one thing, and it's not like that's my only challenge, I'm sure I have many.
Did you know you'd make it? You had to go out and sell, right? You had to go. Did you rely on, you're not asking your top producers that are in your magazine to pay for ads, so you were going to them for buying Cutco. But so how did you, you knew you had X amount of dollars of ads that you had to buy in order to pay the bills or to give you any money. So what were those struggles? I mean, you had to call them vendors, you had to cold call. What did that look like?
It's a constant roller coaster, and I think that speaks to any entrepreneur who may be watching this. I put on a face all the time, like everything's always amazing and we're just walking on clouds, and I feel like exude that confidence, at least, in a sales environment when I'm like meeting with a partner or whatever, because, you want them to see the vision of what it is. But especially early on, even though I had great relationships with agents, I'm inviting them to this event, the first event that we ever did, our launch party. I mean, I was scared shitless. Am I allowed to swear? Does it matter? I was scared. What'd you say?
That no one would show up?
Yeah. And I think that's the greatest fear that I'm realizing anyone has when they throw an event. You can speak to this, I'm sure. Like, will anybody show up? And it's silly in the back of your head. You're like, of course people are going to show up. But then there's a little voice that's like, but will they? Like, and then you're thinking of things out of your control too. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm checking the weather ferociously whenever
it's going to snow.
Yes. Right. Like we threw our gala last year in February, which was like, oh, we were just lucky. Nothing, knock on wood. I don't want to mess up the audio, but yeah, it's things like that out of our control. But even outside of that, like just worried that people wouldn't come. And then if they did come, that they wouldn't leave the event being like, that was worth my time.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, I mean, I realized through doing that like, wow, there's actually not that much pressure on what we create, because just getting these agents together in a room, because no one's done it before, I didn't realize the value of them connecting to each other, let alone the businesses that get to connect with the agents. That's for sure always valuable. But even the agent to agents relationship, I didn't even know going into this that they really wanted to network together like they do, like a top agent in Anne Arundel and top agent in Baltimore, and like seeing them get together one-on-one for coffee after and like really connect and share ideas. It's just cool to see that abundance flourish and that they're not this cutthroat. Like, it's kind of not this alone. I'm not saying we're responsible for it, but I just love seeing this like change of mindset across the region. It always does turn around though. I really do believe, like, I'm not trying to make it everything is a positive ultimately. I mean, like, there are a ton of challenges I face: uncertainty, fear, self-doubt, like, who am I? I say that every day. Who am I? Do you
worry about the market crashing? I mean, how would does that do anything with real producers and the ability? I mean, I lived through that downturn of 2008. In fact, I was building houses and renovating houses before then, and we saw it in like 2005 when there was headlines that the Baltimore housing market was overpriced. That was actually in the spring of 2005. And by 2008, it was a complete bloodbath. So, the favorite thing, if you said if somebody asked you what you did and you said that you're a realtor, they asked you what else you did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because, and then you have people that say, I wasn't impacted by it. I had my best years in 2008, 2009, and that's fine. But the majority of people, struggled. So do you see where another downturn or a crash like that would affect your business model?
I'm sure it would. And there are times, depending on what I just hear or what I read, that can have an emotional effect for sure. You know, like, you can have a steadfast belief and then you read one article and you're like, oh my God, the world is exploding tomorrow. Like,
that would affect
doomed,
everybody. Right, that would affect everybody.
But I try to stay as level as possible, but it's impossible. We're all emotional beings or whatever. But yeah, I do think about that, and I think a few things would happen. I just would have to lean into the fact and be prepared that certain partners that, and they just wouldn't be able to continue, or they just, and if they voice their struggles, we work something out, but like, because they're on agreements, so I'm a human being, I'd be empathetic to that. I feel like we're just like really struggling right now in the market. It's like, I have to be prepared for that, because marketing dollars is always the first to go. In terms of the agents themselves, one thing that gives me confidence is because these are the top 500 agents and they're all doing roughly 10 million plus, according to the MLS standings or whatever. Those are the agents that stand to thrive through a shift like that. It's not like they wouldn't take a small hit, but they've built the practices, the systems, the habits that would allow them to get through the shift.
Yeah, that's very true. But your vendors, like you said, I mean, they're the ones that are going to take the...
Exactly.
Are they willing to, because that audience shrinks a lot. So
it's true.
Yeah, but we hope it doesn't happen. So how about digital? So what are you guys doing to go digital with this? I mean, I see you do a lot of social media stuff.
Yeah.
So what's in the pipeline for that?
Love it. So really all we're doing so far at the basis of it is, outside of our events in the magazine, is we created a private Facebook group, which, is always like a simple thing to say, but it's actually really been powerful.
Wow.
Anyone can create a Facebook group, and I crossed my fingers that people would take to it, actually engage with it. You can't force that though. So I can't really take credit. I'm just really fortunate that we got some really strong advocates in the beginning that I had met with, and they're like, what, I'm going to post. I'm going to post some questions on there. David Orso being one of them.
Was
Shout
that
out
your
David
strategy?
Orso.
I mean, did you do that intentionally? Go after these influencers that had more of that ability to send the ripple through the crowd?
I wish I could take credit for really being strategic about that. I'm grateful that people like David Orso just volunteered because he believed in me, and then of course it set off a light bulb that I was like, I should probably have these conversations. I can't force anyone to post anything. And I don't even want to have that awkward conversation of like, can you, if they don't want to. I just lightly encourage them, like, hey, like, engage on there. And not as like a selfish thing. It's like, it's a great resource to use. Mm-hmm. So it's cool to see that agents have really taken to it. They multiple posts a day, and it's only
any agent or just
it's just the top 500 and our partners.
Right.
So that's another way that
so
the
how do you
partners
monitor
can connect that.
So you actually have to be the one to let them into the group.
Right.
So somebody else can't do it.
Right.
Right.
It's closed, so anyone can find, you can find it. It's called Baltimore's Top 500 Realtors. And we have about probably 90 requests pending because people request to be in it.
Sure.
Both partners and realtors. And I just kind of go through.
You let any partners in?
It's only partners that are partners with us, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one of the benefits of being, one of our partners.
So if they don't keep advertising, they're kicked out.
Yeah, actually, and that's happened before.
That's right.
Yeah,
we'll kick you out of the group.
It's
right.
Because it's a package deal.
Sure.
Like by being a partner, you don't just get an ad in a magazine. We all know that that's great for top of mind, but it's not going to convert anything. Like, let's be real, right? It's branding. They're going to think of you. They do read the magazine, so it's worth something.
See
for sure.
who's supporting.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Being supportive.
And and they're looking at you and they think of you, and that it's mind share. It's not something they're going to pick up the phone and call.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not 1990 or whenever people actually did that back in the day.
Yeah.
But
hey, I did that.
Yeah. Right. And it's funny because actually some people have gotten calls, and I'm always blown away because I'm like, I would never ever set that expectation, but that's cool, and that randomly happens. But
I can remember my first accounting program had green letters. That goes back.
Oh
it was like a CRT machine.
Oh my gosh.
This is my 30th year in self-employment this year.
What?
Started my business in 1989.
Wow.
But anyway.
That's amazing.
So
I was born in 88. So I was just a mere 1 year old.
All right. Okay.
Just to drill that in.
That's right. Just to kind of.
It was terrible.
All right. Hey, look, man. I tell you what. I think I'm one of the youngest 50-year-olds out there. So.
Yeah.
No, you are. You got that energy. You got that spirit.
I think I'm buying into the 50s, the new 30s.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you have it.
Absolutely.
So as far as when you say you're looking to grow your business, what's next? I mean, what's the next? What do you see happening? I noticed that you're looking for speakers now. So
you saw that on Facebook?
I did. So you're trying to put something like something for the agents or something for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, you ever see opening this up, or it's always going to be everything that you do focuses on the top 500?
No, that's an amazing question and perfect segue to kind of what we do have sort of in the pipes right now. One, we're just looking to ramp up the events that are for this audience, and that's just a side note. We already are doing roughly 5 to 6 events a year, half of them being large-scale social events like our gala, like just 200-300 people, but it's like just large networking. So the typical, you got food, you got booze, you got music, like open networking kind of events, like the ones that you throw.
Yeah. We haven't hit 200 or 300 yet.
Oh, you know what I mean. It's
not yet.
Right.
But you're doing them with such frequency, it couldn't be that. Which is great because I love small intimate events too. Because how many people can you really talk to over the course of a couple hours, right? I mean, it just happens to be large because of our audience.
And these events are exclusive to the 500.
Correct.
And their dates?
And we put a lot
Do
of...
they have dates allowed to go to, or is it just strictly them?
Some. So the gala coming up is Black Tie, and that's like our one annual gala that we also give out some realtor awards, which, they love that.
Yeah.
And our partners help us decide who wins the awards. So that's cool. That's what's happening. And we're doing that right now. So that's just another also reason for them to go, because they could be nominated for an award. We'll see. But that's plus one. And then other events, it just depends on the venue and what we can have space for. We do run out of space even, just because our partners come. We have close to 70 partners now. And so if they all brought a plus one, that's already close to 150 people. Not that they all can make every one, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And so we have to really have always room for 200 to 300 people.
Yeah.
And then if you add the plus one, it's like there's a lot of real estate
event.
Partnerships. Of course, I'm sensitive to that. And if anyone individually asks me, I'll always be like, sure. But I never really promote openly, like, bring a plus one, because I just don't want to automatically double everyone that's coming.
Yeah.
Wait, I lost the original question. You were talking about, what's next?
Just the growth.
So, so we got those events. We also do mastermind events for just the top 500, and those are more educational, like roundtable discussions around certain topics, where I usually bring in someone to help me facilitate, or I'll have a speaker come in, which also leads to my question about the speakers. I posted on Facebook asking people to tag speakers and presenters that they love, whether they're local or not local. I just want to have a running list, because usually the structure of our masterminds are we bring in a speaker and they'll do a keynote, about a topic. Like the last one in November was about the shifting market. So shifting market and shifting technology was kind of merged together. So that started a lot of discussion around that. And then moving forward to your question about, are we going to open it up? So I think it's important to maintain the exclusive group as one entity, just because, and I've gotten a lot of feedback. We have an advisory council of realtors and partners together that I also consult just to get their feedback to make sure our decisions are benefiting both parties. And kind of the consensus is...
Do you run those?
Yeah. And we roughly quarterly. We're due for another meeting now. I'm planning the gala, so probably after the gala we'll do another meeting. But yeah, so they really value that the event, especially the top agents, you can imagine, they really value that the caliber of the agents and partners, because we don't just have any partner. They have to be referred by a top agent to be a partner with us. They really love that the caliber of the room is so high, and that every person you're talking to is at a certain level. And any event where you have to earn the ability to be there, or it's a badge of honor to be invited, just has a certain allure to it, and I don't want that to fade. However, to your question, I think it's also important for the greater good of the industry, because I see, in terms of impact, right, I see that we're doing so much for the top 500, which is cool. But one could argue we're giving all of this value to a group of agents who are already doing really well. And so the question becomes, how do we help other agents get there? And so it's sort of like not necessarily giving back, but kind of like, how are we, as Craig Northup or Will Featherstone would say, reaching one and teaching one to pull them up into this group, which leads to, I've been working with Nick Waldner and just throwing around ideas on doing a quarterly, I don't know how often it would be, event for up and comers. So basically it would just be a training event where we would, easily get help from all the top agents that are a part of our community to help speak, facilitate that, train, and just another avenue to create space for the community to come together as a whole and helping them get into that group. Because right now when somebody comes to me, I get emails all the time from agents that see it on Facebook, and they see our events, and how do I get in there? Yep. And it's just feels so, I don't like how I feel when I have to tell them, oh, well, you have to sell this much, then we can talk. Yeah. I don't say it like that, but that's the vibe, right? It's it's unapproachable. It's like, oh, well, I guess you're just going to have to do more business, then we can have, it's douchey is what it is. Right. So I don't try and come off like that, but that's how I feel.
Right, you want to be encouraged.
Exactly. Right. So it's like, okay, well, these events, and it's nice to have an incentive or a carrot, right, to go for.
Can you do that under the Real Producers franchise, or is that something that you would have to...
I would brand it differently.
Thinking that?
Yeah, I would brand it differently, not because of anything that the franchise would have to say about it. It would be more, I don't want to confuse people as to what audience each event is for. So I feel like anything that's a Baltimore Real Producers event, we're going to keep exclusive.
Right.
But then I'm just going to create a new name for a series of events so that people start to know that brand as, oh, that's
So that'd be a
open. That's
complete
open for
different
all.
business. Is
So
that a different business?
I guess it would all be under the same umbrella. I would just call the event something different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But it doesn't go against what your franchise agreement has with real producers.
Right. Like it doesn't follow their model, so to speak. And I've had a lot of conversations, as you can imagine, because
Are they feeling the same thing? Which, I mean, you went to the summit. Are you discussing that at the summit?
the top people, we are all the top people who've been in it around the same time, like the early adopters. By the nature of us being early adopters, we're all seemingly different from a lot of the newer people, not in a bad way. It's just, it takes a certain type of person to get in early and build and create something that doesn't have a system or model and create it themselves versus somebody who can plug into an already existing model and just follow the program. Yeah. And so, and it's not to say anything about the newer people. It's just that, especially the people at the level that have been doing it for a while, they've followed the model, they see a lot of success, and it's kind of like a classic what's next? What can we do to have more impact?
Yeah, and I think, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I mean, all of us have our own thoughts of, how to run our businesses, and but I've always been, from the mindset that you can't serve everybody.
True.
I think that the businesses that are trying to serve everyone lose.
True.
Because you never really know what direction you're going.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that, my only, thought would be is, I think that, and not to say that you shouldn't help other people or up and comers, but I mean, watching what you've done in 2 years as somebody that's been in the industry for a while that hadn't even heard of you, Real Producers at all. I mean, it's a new brand, and to watch what you have done and, sort of how you've captured, I mean, it's not easy space to penetrate, real estate agents. I mean, you said it. So the top producers are really busy all the time. They're really keeping a schedule. So when you see that you're grabbing the attention that you are and you're offering these great things and they're seeing value in it, I think you're right. I think you have to be mindful that if you aren't careful, you will destroy what you just built, your brand, because it is that club.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's something to say too. Is if you want to be in it, then just work harder.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
It's not saying. I mean, some people want to be part time. Some people never want to be a $10 million producer, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
You know what? But at the same time, for the ones that do and want to be there, they should enjoy that top producer status. So I mean, kudos to. I think what you're doing is great.
Yeah.
So I want to know about you. I mean, tell us about what a young Colleen Rippey was like. I mean, I see you. I mean, you're doing this amazing thing. I mean, you're successful. You've grown now 2 types of businesses. I mean, were you the one with the lemonade stand in the neighborhood? I mean,
that's funny.
How did you start?
Similar. I don't think I did a lemonade stand, but I always did love to sell things and make money and save money. I was always really into that. I wish I was still as into saving money as I was back then, because I could probably use some help with that. But I'd like to spend now too. But yeah. So growing up, just off the cuff, I went to this one festival or something, and I saw somebody selling these marshmallow guns. Have you ever seen those before?
No.
You can make them out of PVC pipe, so it's so cheap to make.
Okay.
So then I was on this mission to go to all these different festivals, anything really that had people walking through, outdoor, where I could set up a little booth or whatever. And I would go to Home Depot and buy all the I learned how to do it, and I'm not super handy, so I'm really kind of surprised.
How old were you at this point?
Oh my gosh, probably was I a teenager yet? Probably a early teenager.
Okay.
Maybe 13.
Yeah.
Middle school, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's right.
That sounds about, yeah. And I would buy all the PVC pipe, cut it up, and then you just attach with the little, I don't even know what the little connectors were.
Yeah.
And you put marshmallows in, you could blow it, and it shot these marshmallows so hard. They were amazing.
That's fine.
So anyway, the kids loved them, and I loved them. And
parents didn't love them.
No.
Who was making these marshmallow guns?
I know. They were like super popular. So I made those, sold them for a little bit. I always loved to trade and sell like Pokemon cards, and was always, all the new fads, Pogs, all that stuff that was my generation. Do you guys remember Pogs?
No.
Oh, see, this is anybody in the millennial generation watching.
Right.
You maybe know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're connecting with Colleen right now. Really, we're just kind of like, okay.
Okay, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever.
But I always, so anyway, I just love to sell and make money. And then honestly, I found myself in like a couple like retail type jobs, failed miserably at them. And I was always
like where'd you work?
I worked at Modell's Sporting Goods, and then I was also a server at a couple different places, just, in high school over the summers and that kind of thing. And the part that I was good at, of course, was like the relationship part and like talking to people. What I wasn't good at was like, especially in the retail environment at Modell's, like getting paid the same amount no matter what I did. So it really created this massive laziness in me. Like, I am super lazy when I'm not being incentivized to work hard.
Right.
I'm not the kind of person that just works hard for the sake of it. I've always wished I was, honestly.
Right.
I'm just not. Like, I'm just like, well, if I'm going to get paid to like sit here on my ass, or I can go sort the hangers, what do I prefer to do?
Right.
Like, I didn't really want to keep busy. I just was on to socialize with the other coworkers. So I just realized like that was not for me at all. I was really terrible at it, and I would have never gotten Employee of the Month, which may shock people, but like that kind of environment just wasn't for me. And so that's what then led me to Cutco.
That was your first real
That was it. Yeah.
big person job.
And I did that for that many years. And I'm just so grateful to have stumbled on Cutco, because it's such an amazing entrepreneurial opportunity for just a young kid.
The more harder you work, the more you made.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Direct relationship between
awesome.
that and then led me to Real Producers. And that's it. Like, I really didn't bounce around and do too much stuff, you know, and it's like, I'm really grateful that my friend referred me to Cutco, honestly, because I would have never just like stumbled on, selling knives is so weird.
Yeah.
It's just strange, but it worked out really well.
Yeah, well, that's great. So what advice would you have for a young entrepreneur listening right now and saying that, you know what, that retail job or the server job isn't for them, and they're not, if they want to go out and make money, the harder they work? What some of the advice you could give them?
Looking back, I think the biggest challenge that I faced, and I'm sure anyone watching this may relate, is having friends that aren't on the same page. And I still love and adore a lot of the friends that I'm even alluding to right now, because they were my childhood friends. They'll always have a place in my heart. It was just the expectation when I started with Cutco was, since I ran my own schedule, that I should essentially be available whenever. It's like, well, wait a second. Like, you don't have an hourly job. Why can't you come out drink with us tonight? Why can't you go out to dinner with us tonight? It's like, well, I got an appointment, or no, I need to do phone time. That was the big thing, because that was the lead generation, right? That's the time you have to protect more than anything else, is the time to create the appointments, or else you have no appointments. So, from 6 to 9, we'd have these phone jams, is what we called it. So all the Cutco reps would get together at the office and like play music. I don't even know how we made calls. There's music blasting. There's all these people talking. It was actually a terrible environment, but good in a sense that it's like going to the library to study. Like, you have a place to do it. Everyone else is doing it, and you're in a good mode. So we did that like 2 nights a week, and my friends would always be so confused, like, blow that off, terrible influences, but they meant well. They just wanted to hang out.
Yeah.
Right.
But I would just say, like, and I also hear like Gary Vee in my voice, and in my head, like, you really have to be careful with who you surround yourself with. But even if they're your good friends and you don't want to necessarily cut them off, you just have to be strong and like draw the line with them and prioritize what really matters to you most, whatever that is.
Right.
Protect your time,
Cut out the noise.
your career, your whatever is the long-term vision. It's always going to far outlast, that instant gratification night out drinking. And trust me, I did my share of that all the time, but I had to make those tough choices, which, led me to where I am today, which I'm not saying is anywhere amazing, but like, I know that the people that, follow that listen to that, are where they want to be, or at least on the road to where they want to be. Time.
That's awesome.
Time is everything.
Well, we really appreciate it. So, if somebody wants to reach you, can they? If they're a young entrepreneur or someone that's trying to make it this shift. So
Sure.
for those that may be listening through audio, can you just let them know how they can get a hold of you?
Oh, definitely. I'll give you my Gmail because I have a few emails. That's probably the easiest one to reach me. It's like all encompassing. So it's Colleen, that's spelled COLLEEN .Rippey, RIPPEY @gmail.com.
That's excellent. And for those of you that are watching, we'll put them in our show notes so that you'll have that.
Awesome.
And thank you so much. So inspirational.
Thank
and
you.
We're so glad that we met you. So
Yes, thank you guys for having me on.
Thank you for
This was a
coming.
blast.
So if you'd like to talk to Colleen, send her an email. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.